Welcome to the Gita in Action podcast. My name's Radha. I'm here with our family of seekers. We're reading through the Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. We've been at it for about a year and a half, maybe even over that. We've been at it for a while here together, a little over a year and a half. And we're in the 10th chapter today. We're learning about Krishna's opulence, and it's really sweet. It's these bhakti chapters are just pure nectar. So thank you all for being here. And let's just get right into it today. Um, we're in chapter 10, text 28. Chapter 10, text 28 is where we're starting. But before we do that, Shraddhanjali, do you want to say our prayers for us?
Sure. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Svapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Haribol.
Haribol. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we are in chapter 10, text 28. And what's happening here in this section is that this is a section of 20 verses. This is kind of a long section. It's like half of chapter 10. And what Krishna's doing here is he's using the one among the many to point us to the one beyond the many. So he'll take like a category of something and he'll point out the strongest, most powerful, most beautiful, the highest among that category. And then he'll say, "That is me." So in other words, everything great that we see, all the opulences that we see, is Krishna. Is come ultimately just comes from divine source. And so we're going through a list of like, I mean, I'd say list. There's so many. There's these verses are so rich of all of these categories of things, and the one among those things that's especially extraordinary and pointing us back to Krishna. So we're learning a little bit about some of these Vedic manifestations. They're not always so relevant or prevalent in our culture or society today, but we can understand the principle and we can even kind of start thinking about the principle in our own lives. I was talking about Costa Rica last class because I'm taking a group to Costa Rica next week, and we're going to one of the tallest waterfalls, one of the biggest waterfalls in Costa Rica. So that would be an example of all of the waterfalls. I am that, the biggest, most powerful, most, and when we start to see life through those lenses, what happens is instead of looking at things of how I can enjoy, right, or looking at things and being envious of them or just getting so caught up in the ego, we can look at really great, beautiful, powerful things and see Krishna. And so in this way, he's kind of given us this like roadmap back to him through the Bhagavad Gita because it changes the way that we see and relate with the world around us. And this is what he wants for us because this is ultimately what fulfills the heart is connecting back with God. So we may look around this material world and see ways that, we want to enjoy or things that we don't like, we want to run away from. But this is really, when we learn to see the material world as a roadmap that can lead us back to Krishna, life becomes sweet. Like our problems go away. I mean, we may still feel them, but we see them in perspective that, this is just a detour and my on my journey home, my way back to Krishna, because we understand that that's what the purpose of this whole material existence is. So that's what Vibhuti Yoga is. Learning to see the extraordinary things, learning to see extraordinary things around us as manifestations of Krishna. And in that, we grow closer to God. We remember God throughout our days, throughout our lives. So we're in chapter 10, verse text 28. We're going through this list. Let me just share my screen and we can get right into it. Whenever you're ready, Stella.
Ayudanam, excuse me. Ayudanam aham rajram, denunam asmi kamaduk, prajanas kasmi kandarpaha, sarpanam asmi vasuki. Of weapons, I am the thunderbolt. Among cows, I am the surabi. Of causes for procreation, I am Kandarpa, the god of love, and of serpents, I am Vasuki.
Thank you. So we'll just go through each of these briefly to understand the context a little bit so that we can better understand the principle. But again, the definitions of these things aren't so important. It's just that we're walking home with this principle and we're starting to see this principle in our own lives. That's the whole purpose of even understanding these, examples or these opulences that he's pointing out. So first he says, of all weapons, I am the thunderbolt. So the thunderbolt is the weapon of Indra, the king of heaven. Indra's in a lot of the other opulences as well, because he's like the god of the gods. He's and so this thunderbolt, it's known as an incredibly powerful weapon, something that represents overwhelming force. So this is, we can see this as great power in the world. This power ultimately comes from the divine source. So there's no independent great power in the world when we think about really powerful things. It's not independent, it's not random, it's not belonging to a particular person or organization or country, whatever. It's it's ultimately coming from the divine source. It's ultimately coming from God. That's how we should learn to see it. Okay? And this will transform our hearts. If we can change our vision, this will transform our hearts. Then he says, among cows, I am the Sarabi. So in Vedic text, there's this special kind of cow called Sarabi. They're sometimes described as these desire fulfilling cows. And they're said to produce unlimited nourishing milk. They're just like really extraordinary cows. And when we think about ordinary cows, they're already pretty amazing. Like, what kind of machine could man create that you put grass into one side and somehow nourishing milk comes out the other side? It's just like this incredible transformation. So Krishna's pointing to that wonder and saying, even the simple miracle of nature reflects divine intelligence. Some of these things we just take for granted. They were just so used to them, we don't even think about them. But this is pretty extraordinary. It's nothing that we've seen man be able to create or recreate. Then he says, of causes for procreation, I am Kandarpa, the god of love. So here he is referring to attraction between man and woman that leads to the creation of new life. We all know attraction is incredibly powerful. I think about attraction. It like rules the world. I remember my stepdad telling me that when I was like 10 years old. Like, you want to know what people are looking for in this world? That's what they're looking for. It's this attraction. It's incredibly powerful. One of the strongest forces in the world. So what Krishna is saying here is that this sacred attraction that leads to the creation of life itself, when attraction is used properly, it becomes this divine energy that brings new souls into the world. And in this way, children are understood as gifts of God. So this, power of attraction to bring new soul that brings new souls into the world, this is God. And then he says, among serpents, I am Vasuki. So this is a powerful serpent who played this famous role in the Vedic story of the turning of the ocean. So in that story, the gods and the demons, they used this Vasuki-like giant rope to churn the cosmic ocean. So he was like this, he was the rope. This snake was this serpent was the rope that they used to churn the ocean. And that means that everyone was pulling from both, like people were pulling from both sides, this rope, and the rope, and it didn't break. So it's just really strong. Okay. So, again, these examples, Krishna's pointing to something extraordinary in the universe and saying that strength, that power, that remarkable ability, those are reflections of me. It's just kind of amazing. I mean, it's more than amazing, but it's also really beautiful when we understand that that is the point of all of these things, is to remind us of Krishna. We get so lost in all of these things. We get so lost in how these things make us feel about ourselves or whatever it is, the way that we approach, greatness when we see it. But imagine if everything great in this world we could see as directly from Krishna. And in that way, it pulls us closer to Krishna. Like when somebody you love, cooks you a really nice dinner, and it makes you feel so close to that person. Right? Like, wow, this coming directly from you. This is just a manifestation of your love, a manifestation of your skill, your heart, your talent, this is everything that we have in this world. Krishna's just giving it to us. And it's directly from him. This is and imagine when we really realize that, how that really just increases the rasa in our relationship with God. How close and connected we feel to God when we're able to see things like that in that rightful perspective. It's like I like this example like a postcard. It's like somebody sends you a postcard and you get obsessed with the picture on the postcard. You put it on your fridge, you like get obsessed with the picture. You forget who the postcard was even from. And the whole point of the postcard was to remind you of that person that it's from. But you just get infatuated with the picture on the postcard. And that's what's happening here in this world as we go around. We're getting infatuated with the things around us and we're forgetting who they're from. We're forgetting who they're from. We just take them for granted. Okay, 29. Let's go on to 29.
Anantas kasminaganam varunu yada samaham pitranam aryama kasmi yama asam yamatamaham. Of the many hooded nagas, I am Ananta, and among the aquatics, I am the demigod Varuna. Of departed ancestors, I am Aryama, and among the dispensers of law, I am Yama, the Lord of Death.
Some really nice examples here. Okay, so first he says, among the Nagas, I am Ananta. So Nagas are described in the Vedic texts as these powerful, multi-headed serpents. The snakes that we see today just have one head, but these beings are described as having many. You guys ever get those gummy worms that have like multiple heads? You see those? That's what I'm thinking of from like my childhood, those gummy worms with two heads. So these are like these multi-hooded serpents, multi-headed serpents. So among them, the most celebrated is Ananta. He represents immense strength and stability. So Krishna is saying that this extraordinary power and majesty of Ananta is actually a reflection of his own opulence. And then he says, among aquatics, I am Varuna. So Varuna is the deity who presides over the waters of the universe. Water is the most essential element of life. Everything depends on it. So Krishna is pointing to this vast power and importance of water as another manifestation of his energy. And then he says, among the ancestors, I am Aryama. So in Vedic culture, there's this strong tradition of honoring our ancestors. And the tradition describes that those who perform certain ancestral rites and live a life of ordinary piety go to this planet Pitraloka. It's this planet of the ancestors. And we know like Vedic cosmology is like so vast. It's not like, there's just like one category of heaven. It's like multi-layered. There's layers of higher planets that you can go to depending on your consciousness and your desires. So Pitraloka is one, if you live a life of ordinary piety, if you live a life of a little higher level of piety, then you might go to Swargaloka, and it just keeps going. It's quite detailed. But anyway, the idea is that Aryama he is the presiding deity of Pitraloka, that realm of the ancestors. And then Krishna says, among the dispensers of law, I am Yama, so the Lord of Death. And Yamaraj is a pretty interesting character because he represents this principle of cosmic justice. In a world where people often like to avoid the rules or think that they can get away with things, and oftentimes they can, right? Like we see that in our politics today. It's like incredible, like how these people that have done terrible things have gotten so much power and wealth. It's like it's unreal. And so this happens, and they may get away with it for some time. But the good news is, and the deeper message here is that the universe operates under a system of moral order. And in this, these actions have consequences. And ultimately, no one can escape the law of karma. This is the beauty of the universe. This is the way it was set up for us to learn. So if someone, refuses to live a regulated or responsible life, eventually they're going to face those consequences under the system represented by Yamaraj. It's inevitable. So they may get away with it here, but they're not going to get away with it with Yamaraj. He's the most powerful, and he's the most powerful dispenser of law. Nobody gets past him. And so this same thing, this great power, this great order, this great authority in the universe. It's not independent. Nothing's independent. It's all just reflections, these small glimpses of the divine power behind everything. Okay, should we move on to the next one? 30. Does anybody have anything that they want to share that's coming up for them before we move on? Yeah, it's kind of beautiful, how we go through life and we learn a certain way to look at the world, a certain way to relate to the world. Whether, some things we look at as like, how can I extract the most pleasure out of this for myself? Some things we look at as like we've already tried to extract all the pleasure. We've learned that there's no pleasure, and so we say, I want nothing to do with it. These are like the two polar extremes that we do. We're like either all in trying to extract as much pleasure for ourselves, like relationships, for example. It's just I remember this. Like that was the point of relationships. Like how can I feel good? How can I enjoy? And then I remember getting kind of like burned out of relationships. Like there's no real joy here for me. There's nothing. And then it's like I'm not even interested. This happens. It's like you swing the other way. But bhakti teaches us this whole new way to relate with the world, and that is to see it in perspective of our service to God. So even something like a relationship, it doesn't have to be, how can I enjoy the most out of this relationship? It can be, how can we come together and serve God together, with God at the center. And that's like the secret sauce for any relationship. That's what'll make a relationship like sustainable, steady, stable. It's like the secret sauce for happiness and material existence, but it's also assisting us in our journey back to God when we relate with the world around us like that, whether it be relationships, career, material things that we have, a house. It's not how can I get the biggest, most beautiful house so that, I can look really great and beautiful and rich. It's what house is going to facilitate my relationship or my service to God the best. And Krishna tells us in the Gita, and we have all learned from experience, when we start to relate to the things around us, the people around us in this way, our heart is fulfilled. Our heart is fulfilled. And we can try other ways. Right? We can try to squeeze pleasure out. We can just run away out of frustration. But this is like the secret code that unlocks this door of just unlimited happiness and bliss. So how can we use this in service to God? It's really quite beautiful. Okay, let's move to the next one. 30. Whenever you're ready, Stella.
Praladas kasmi daityanam kala kala yatamaham mriganam cha mrgendroham venateyas cha paksinam. Among the Daitya demons, I am the devoted Pralad. Among subduers, I am time. Among beasts, I am the lion. And among birds, I am Garuda.
Such nice ones here. He begins by saying, among the Daitas, I am Prahlad. So the Daitas are generally known as demons, people who are just really opposed to God. But even among them, there was this one extraordinary exception, Prahlad. And Prahlad was completely devoted to God, even though he was born in this family that was just super hostile towards God. And his father represented just like immense material power, like all the material power you could think of just right inside this one person. He was really powerful. And he tried to harm Prahlad again and again, but nothing could touch him because of his spiritual strength. Right? This is the power of spiritual strength. And this demonstrates the power of spiritual strength. And Krishna's saying, this is me. The point here is that real power isn't just physical power, that spiritual strength can be even greater. This is what we learned from Prahlad's story. And there's this amazing movie that came out this summer that you really this anytime I talk about Prahlad now, this I like see these images in my head from this movie because it was just beautiful. It was what was it called? Nrsimhadev. I forget exactly what it was called, but I think it's on Netflix now. Amazing. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend seeing it because you see firsthand just how these qualities of these spiritual qualities of compassion, of of um of evenness, right? Just the same in happiness or distress. Just an open heart of love. How you see how these qualities are just trump any strong material quality, that we associate with power and prestige. It's really quite beautiful. And then Krishna says, among subduers, I am time. So in this world, people may resist authority. They may refuse to be controlled by anyone. This is a mentality I can relate to. You can't tell me what to do. You're not going to convince me. You're not going to catch me. But there's one thing that no one can resist. And this is pretty incredible in itself. And that is time. Okay? Time eventually subdues everyone. We see it time and time again. Yet we really don't want to believe it for ourselves. So we somehow think that we're like immune to it. You know? But time will turn your youthful face into a wrinkled one. Your strong body into a weak one. It'll turn the healthy into the sick. I saw it just yesterday. My husband was trying to read these directions on the back of a bottle and he like couldn't see it. And it was kind of like an unreal moment, like for both of us, as I was watching him try to read it, he's like, I can't see this. And it's like, yeah, this is time. It's what we used to have, just super strong, healthy eyes, not a problem. All of a sudden we can't read the directions on the back of a bottle anymore. And we don't think about it. We don't think it's going to happen to us, but it happens. No one can escape it. And it's funny, because people worry a lot about money and losing their wealth. We obsess over this. Sometimes our lives are like completely just caught in this. This is all we're thinking about, money and losing our wealth. But at least money can be like saved or earned back. Time is totally different. And once a moment passes, it's gone. We can't store it, we can't recover it, and we can't stop spending it, whether we choose to or not. Like every moment of our life is being spent. So we should, some of these examples that he points out are kind of like nice wake-up calls for us to just kind of zoom in a little bit deeper and say, wow, that really is a strong, powerful force. And how can I use that strong, powerful force in my own life in alignment with my constitutional position as a servant of God? Like time, like what are we spending our time on? It's easy when we're spending money. If someone asks you to spend money on something, you'll think like, is this worth it? Do I want to spend this much or that much? But we don't think of that so much with time. Like sometimes it just gets away from us. We're just like mindlessly doing something for hours that has no real value to our life. So this is something for us to contemplate on. What are we really giving our time to? And is it really worth spending our lives on? It's kind of a wake-up call, some of these things. Then he says, among beasts, I am the lion. The lion has like a natural majesty and strength. It's super striking. I was watching Miss Rachel the other day with Prima, by the way, and I learned that lions sleep like 20 hours a day. Isn't this crazy? They're big sleepers. Anyway, that's not really related. It's just crazy, they sleep so long. But they're called like the king of animals. When we see that kind of power and dignity in nature, Krishna's saying that we can see it as a small reflection of divine power. And I heard this story once when Prabhupada was at the zoo and people were kind of like making fun of the lions, like when you go and there's like you see them behind the fence and people kind of like mock them or they get kind of a kick out of like making them react. And Prabhupada told them, he said, don't do that, and he reminded them of this verse. He said, the lion is meant to be a king in the wild. Being in captivity is already unnatural for him. We shouldn't add to his suffering. So it's nice. We can also see this list as like, these are the things Krishna's telling us are the one among the many. We should have some kind of like awe, some kind of like reverence for these things. You know? And then finally he says, among birds, I'm Garuda. So Garuda is this powerful carrier of Lord Vishnu. And he also represents incredible strength, speed, and same thing here, this power, this greatness. Remember where it ultimately comes from. So that is 30. Does anybody have any reflections they want to share?
It is just nice to hear the glories, and
Yeah.
so nice to hear about so many things about the Lord of Death, Yam. We
Yeah.
cannot escape the deeds that we do. You think about that, and the time we spend a dollar. I mean, no, trying to figure out where to spend, but the time is going. And so many people are scrolling for hours. I mean, the new generation, especially, and that. And I mean, we don't know a lot about, okay, Garuda, but then we know we can relate with the time, we can relate with the story of the lion and good thing he sleeps 20 hours. I mean, they sleep 20. Otherwise, they'll be walking around eating so many other animals. That will be
I like that
pitiable.
point.
So, and the
Yeah.
last lecture about the Himalaya, everything
Yeah.
so grand and so beautiful. And the way
Right.
you explained it, that okay, he's talking about the glories, but that doesn't mean he's bragging. He's just letting you know, just like a big doctor or the big investor. I mean, it's good to know about them. That way we can, of course, one is attraction, but then we can relate with them. So that is a
Yes.
good thing.
Yes. Exactly. It's like a doctor explaining the prescription and explaining his qualification to give us the prescription. Like that makes us feel good and gives us confidence to take the medicine. Like that's helpful.
Or
And
about a
that's
surgery. If we want to get
yeah,
a surgery done, okay, we have to go to the best one.
exactly.
So if we are spending time or we are doing anything else, we have to think about the best person, and that is God, Krishna, and whatever we are doing, think about, like you
Yes.
said, you're going to Costa Rica, about the anything we see. Last time we were thinking, okay, what do you think? I mean, when do you think about Krishna? Of course, little small flowers that are growing, anywhere on the road. It's so beautiful, so colorful, and we are like, ah. Of course, you think about Krishna there. There's anything.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, and how fortunate we all are to have met, a devotee, somebody that can introduce us to this world-class surgeon that Krishna is. Because I don't know about you guys, but I would be so lost in life trying to find happiness on my own and just for myself. And I know this because this is what I was doing before spiritual life. I was like oscillating between like trying to squeeze out the pleasure and then just running away from it, realizing that there was more pain there than pleasure. And I remember my one of my good friends, somebody that I really looked up to growing up, told me, "Don't have children. Never have children. It's just painful. All it is, it's just painful. It's just suffering." And this is what happens because this is the reality. You have kids, they grow up, they resent you. You just think this is terrible. Whatever it is. And this perpetuates because this is the mindset and this is what the kids feel and this is the relationship. Okay. But Krishna gives us a whole new way to relate. Again, we relate and how can I raise my kids in service to God? How can I raise my kids to value relationship with God? How can I raise my kids in a high level of consciousness? And what happens is we're doing service to God and we're blissful. We're blissful and we're detached from the results because we're not making it about us. We're just attached to our service. We just are attached to serving God. So whatever comes of that, we know, okay, I'm trying my best. And because we don't take it so personally, we don't make it all about us, we're so like freed by these shackles that otherwise would just tie us to suffering of the you know good and bad roller coaster way of life. This just gives us a way to navigate life and relate to the things around us in a way that just takes us higher and higher. I was in India one time and there was this, I think I might have told you guys this. I met this mystic who's like very well, like my teachers really, really respect him. And he told me that if I hadn't found spiritual life, I would have killed myself. And I really believe him because right before I got into spiritual life, my life was pretty dark. It was like, what am I doing? I was just like stumbling around blindfolded, trying to find something that would relieve some level of suffering, but it just led to deeper suffering. And then I would just get rid of it completely. Then it'd just be like empty. It's brutal. Anyway, Shakti, what do you think?
Hey there. So I can't. Well, I'm not exactly sure around what you were talking about with tired, but since New Vrindavan and the time change, I'm like my body. Like I'm used to getting up at 2:30 and I'm going all day, and then I go to sleep at 8, and then I get up at 2:30 and I go all day, and then now here I'm like. Oh my God, I figured out I feel like I'm in this like drowsy daze, so I apologize for being late. Um, And it definitely affects my entire day when I'm not here and I don't start my day this way.
Hmm.
Um, but that being said, I, when you were saying like don't have kids, it's only pain, it's only this, it's only that. I think if I didn't have Krishna consciousness in my life, that might be something I might see. But because I came into Krishna consciousness, Jaden was, I don't know, like 5, 6. I started it.
Yeah. So more so like deeper in, like he's like 7, 8 kind of
Right.
thing.
So like in the middle, as he was starting to, like that's the time where they start to like grow up and become more, a little bit more independent. And all I and my thought process is I need what I wanted, not I need, but maybe I need, but I want to make sure that I give him a piece of, I want him to know that, I mean, I would love for him to believe that, believe in Krishna and believe what we believe. But if he doesn't, I want him to know, God, so it happens when you have kids. You talk about them, you start to cry. Am I right, Stella? You talk about your kids and just woo. Um, I just want him to have God, whatever that looks like to him. I don't care if it's blue, if it's yellow, if it's orange. I want him to know that there is, I mean, I'd love for him to have Krishna in his life,
Hmm.
but I really want him to have God so that he knows that there's something bigger than him
Hmm.
and that, I really believe he knows. And would be able to ask George this all the time because I feel like George is my North Star. Where I like sometimes I feel like I can't see things a certain way. And George is like grounded. He's like on
Hmm.
the floor where I'm like flittering around like a fairy. And
And I tell her, he knows. I just think that, you know, I mean, I grew up Catholic, and when he was young, like we had him baptized and he did a first communion. But I think at that point, like I wasn't even like practicing. Like I think we
Hmm.
did it more like for my parents, right?
yeah,
Hmm.
Uh, but I think in the general scheme of things, like he sees what Shakti does, and we talk about just, I think, more about being a kind person,
yes.
right? But I
Hmm.
think he will, he just turned 20, but he will,
Well, he's moving back home.
yeah, but he'll
Hmm.
he'll
So I'm gonna
he'll
bring him
eventually
I'm gonna bring him down to my
find his,
altar.
he'll
So,
find it for himself, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
I think just adjacent, like having us and seeing what Shakti does, and uh, he'll eventually you know settle in on his own. But I think it's something that we can't tell him, right?
Yeah.
It's something that he's got to
Yes.
find out on his own.
Yes, and that is
Yeah.
honestly, that's Radha. I
The
already
hardest
see
part.
it. That is the part where you're like, you just have to stand back and like
Let
now
them.
the one thing I know I can do that he's coming home is I can say, hey, you know what? I have to go to this thing, but I can't carry all this stuff. Can you help me?
You can engage him
He's
in
like,
service.
I'm like, okay. Just so I
Yes.
can
He'll
bring
help,
him
and he'll
in
help. He'll
and
help
help. And he just
because
will because he's
he's
that
done it.
kid.
Sure.
He's got that good soul, which that in and of itself, I'm just like, thank you, Krishna.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a
But
possibility.
we could even though like I have devotee friends who are very, very serious about their practice, but their kids are not taking it up. And it doesn't they just have zero interest. They were raised like this, but now they're older and they just have zero interest. And we also have to prepare ourselves for that.
Yeah.
But this spiritual practice helps us do this, even just like accepting, that everybody has their own karma and we can be that example. We can, do our best, but ultimately we're doing it in service to God, not in service to ourselves, not even in service to our kids. We're
No.
serving our kids in service to God. It's ultimately all in service to God. Is what we're trying to what we're aspiring for.
Yeah, and lastly, because I want to hear what Stella has to say, but lastly, I will say is that a lot of what I did when he was, as he had gotten older, I was much more into Krishna consciousness. I would listen to the Mahabharata in the car, and he'd get in the car and he'd be like, "Is Yudhisthira, did he go to the game? He's not supposed to go to the," because I was listening to it in the car, so he was sort of connected to it. And so I don't know, of course, I pray to Krishna and I don't know what is going to happen. Like you said, it's there's so many different ways it could happen. Doesn't matter if you're super into it, super not into it, born into it. It could be a million different
Mm,
avenues. But this probably for me is one of the most painful like avenues where I'm like, I want him to find a North Star, find Krishna, I want
mm,
him to know, and I think in a way he knows, but he doesn't have something to say,
mm,
oh,
yeah,
like if things aren't going well. I don't know. I
yeah,
could be totally wrong, because it's
yeah.
not something he shares with me. But yeah, I'm
Mm,
gonna leave it at that.
thank you. What do you think, Stella?
I just wanted to say two short things. One is that that's how important the verse is that you do your duty without any expectation of result.
Hmm.
That's a hard one to live into, but it's very important and it's worth the effort and the work.
Hmm.
The other is that, as a parent, we're only a lighthouse. We get them into the small boat when they're little, but they have to go out and they'll go out beyond where they can see the light. But
Hmm.
that's their journey. And, if we actually trust Krishna, then they'll be fine out there on the ocean. Oh, they've had many mothers and many fathers. We're only one. So, anyway, that's all.
I love that analogy. I love the lighthouse. Thank you. So nice. Thank you, Stella. Okay, let's go to the next verse. 31.
Pavana pavatam asmi, Rama sastra britam aham, Jasanam makaraskasmi, Srotasam asmi janavi. Of purifiers, I am the wind. Of the wielders of weapons, I am Rama. Of fishes, I am the shark. And of flowing rivers, I am the Ganges.
Thank you. So first he says, among purifiers, I am the wind. So we think about the wind, the wind moves through everything. It clears the air, it carries away impurities, it refreshes the environment. After a strong breeze or a storm, the air often feels just cleaner and lighter. So Krishna's pointing to that purifying power and saying, even something as simple as the wind, carries this reflection of divine energy. So the next time you smell the air after a storm, think that this is just it's divine energy at work here. Then he says, among wielders of weapons, I am Rama. So here, this is Rama just represents the ideal warrior, someone with extraordinary strength and skill, but who uses that power in the service of righteousness. So when we see strength used properly to protect what is good, Krishna says that power reflects him. I mean, it also reflects. It's also its strength is used improperly. It's still Krishna's power, but the strongest, the highest is using it properly. And then Krishna says, among the fishes, I am the shark. So if you think about the ocean, the shark is one of the most powerful and fearsome creatures there is. He's incredibly fast, efficient, strong. We see this in movies like Jaws. This makes people very, very aware of how formidable sharks can be. Then he says, among flowing rivers, I am the Ganges. So the Ganges River is considered sacred in the Vedic tradition. It's said to originate from the feet of Lord Vishnu and then descend through Lord Shiva before flowing onto the earth. So because of this divine connection, the Ganges is seen not as a river, but as just spiritually purifying. And this is the point: strength, beauty, purity. These are reminders of the divine source behind everything. It's like it makes life like simply magical when we see it like this. Should we see if we can get another one in here? When you're ready, Stella.
Sarganam adir antascha madhyam chevadam Arjuna adyatma vidya vidyanam vadaha pravadatamaham. Of all creations, I am the beginning and the end, and also the middle, O Arjuna. Of all sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self. And among logicians, I am the conclusive truth.
Thank you. So Krishna is saying, of all creations, I'm the beginning, middle, and end. So earlier in the chapter, Krishna explained that he's present throughout time in the lives of all living beings. But here he's expanding that idea to all of creation. So not just living beings, but everything that exists, rocks, mountains, whatever, things that aren't necessarily alive. He's the beginning, middle, and end. Anything that comes into existence, has a beginning, a middle where it exists, and then where it ends. So Krishna's saying, I'm present in all of those phases. And then he says, of all sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self. This is nice too. There's many kinds of knowledge in the world. We have sciences that study the body, the brain, technology, economics, nature, this just goes on and on. And these things are useful. But Krishna says the most important knowledge is knowledge of the self. Okay? Understanding who we actually are beyond just the body and the mind. Because when we don't understand ourselves, even all the other knowledge in the world can leave us confused about how to live. I experienced this. I was like first in my class, all of these academic awards, math student of the year, science student of the year, whatever it is, it's like, but still I'm just like left confused and unhappy. But when we understand the self, our deeper nature, it actually helps us navigate life better. It gives us clarity, it gives us purpose, it gives us direction. So spiritual knowledge is not about escaping the world. It helps us live more intelligently within the world. And so Krishna says this is the highest. This knowledge is the highest. We're so backwards in society. We don't learn anything about this. We just cram our brains full of all of these other knowledges. We're not even told about the highest knowledge, right? That really solves all of our problems. Then Krishna says, among logicians, I am the conclusive truth. Okay, so anyone who's ever watched people argue knows that not all arguments are really about the truth. And this is like a whole thing, like debate. It's like a whole sport. Some people will argue by attacking the other person instead of addressing the issue. Sometimes the goal is just to prove the other person wrong no matter what. Or sometimes people will win a debate using clever logic and it's still not true. I know people like this that I've been in debates with, and I'm like, that doesn't really make sense, but yeah, you're convincing me of it. So Krishna's pointing to something deeper. He's saying, among all forms of reasoning and debate, he represents the conclusion that actually leads to the truth. So not just clever arguments, not just winning the discussion, but reasoning that ultimately brings us closer to reality. So this deep knowledge, that the most meaningful truth, the most fundamental reality, these are all reflections of the divine source behind everything. Should we do just one more? 247. What's verse 247, Shraddhanjali? Do you want to read it for us?
Oh, yeah, that was the verse about not having
Oh,
expecting the result.
yes. Okay, okay. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay,
Do you
let's
want?
do we want to do one more? Or do you have shares?
One more, one more.
One more? Okay, one more.
Um,
When you're ready, Stella.
wait, which verse are we on?
It's
We're on
33.
33. Okay.
Yeah.
Aksaranam akarosmi dvandva samasikesya cha aham eva kasaya kalo dataham vispato mukaha. Of letters, I am the letter A, and among compound words, I am the dual compound. I am also inexhaustible time, and of creators, I am Brahma.
Thank you. So first he
Great.
says, of all the letters, I am A. So when we think about the letters or the alphabet, we usually don't connect them with spirituality at all. But Krishna is saying that even something as simple as language can remind us of divinity. In Sanskrit, the sound A is the foundational sound. It's at the beginning of the alphabet, and it's in like every sound in Sanskrit, A is within them. So in this sense, it's like the starting point from which many other sounds arise. So Krishna is saying among those letters, that foundational A represents him. And then Krishna says, among compound words, I am the dual compound. So sometimes two words combine together to form a single idea. So usually when that happens, one word is more important than the other. Like if we think of the word coffee cup, the main thing is cup, and coffee is just describing what that kind of word is. One word dominates the other. But a dual compound is different. In that type of compound, both words are equally important. So if we say mother and father, both people are equally important in that phrase. Neither one is subordinate to the other. So in Sanskrit, these two words can combine into one compound that means mother and father together. So that's a dual compound. So he's just to kind of explain, because with our knowledge of like the English alphabet, and like this doesn't quite make sense. But in Sanskrit, it makes quite a lot of sense. Of compound words, I'm the dual compound. So Krishna's just pointing to that type of compound, the one where both sides are equally important, as the most special example. Then Krishna speaks about time. He says, among subduers, I am time. Or earlier in the chapter, he said, among subduers, I am time. Here he says, I am inexhaustible time. So everything in this world eventually becomes exhausted. Like Shakti was saying, we're all just exhausted. And as time goes on, we get more exhausted. I was just talking to my friend yesterday who watches Prema. She just turned 50. And she said, she watches Prema for 5 hours a day. And I was asking her, she remembers when she would take when her kids were that age, and she's like, yes, but I had so much more energy. I had so much more energy. She says, this is why we need to have kids young, because you have so much more energy. And this is just what happens. We run out of energy. But time never runs out. Time just keeps moving forward steadily. It never slows down. It never gets tired. It's just this unstoppable force. And in this way, we can see Krishna's power. And then finally, he says, among creators, I am Brahma. So Brahma is the being responsible for engineering the entire universe. We think about great creators in our world, like architects, engineers, innovators, they can build just amazing things. But no one can create an entire universe. And even this incredible creative power doesn't come from him independently. It comes from Krishna. So this is the point. Through this chapter, Krishna gives 20 verses of the Gita to this principle, This is what we really need to take home with us. Whenever we see something extraordinary, great, great creativity, great power, great influence, we can recognize that it's a reflection of the divine source behind everything. And to the degree that we do, we will connect with Krishna. And to the degree that we connect with Krishna, we'll experience happiness, bliss, liberation, even in this life. And this is the gift that the Bhagavad Gita gives us. So that is all that I have for you today. It was so nice to be with you all. Does anybody have a final reflection that they want to share?
Thank you for the class.
Thank you. Thank you, Kay. Nice to see you, Amrita. Okay, my friends. Well, I won't see you next week. We'll take a little break, but we'll be back the week after.
Have a good time.
And thank you. Thank you all. Take care.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.